Study with Artemis, Inc. podcast. This information was produced with the assistance of AI-generated content. Alchemy's unsung role in the scientific revolution. The scientific revolution, a period often characterized by a dramatic shift from ancient and medieval thought to modern scientific inquiry, is frequently presented as a clean break from the past, particularly from practices like alchemy. However, a closer examination reveals a far more nuanced and interconnected relationship. Alchemy, often dismissed as mere pseudoscience or a mystical pursuit of gold, was in fact a crucial precursor and, in many ways, an indispensable component of the very revolution it is thought to have opposed. To understand alchemy's role, we must first broaden our definition beyond the popular caricature. Medieval and early modern alchemy was a complex discipline that encompassed a wide array of activities: chemical experimentation, metallurgy, pharmacology, medicine, and deep philosophical and spiritual inquiry. Alchemists were not merely gold seekers; they were often the most skilled practitioners of experimental chemistry of their time, engaged in systematic observation, meticulous record-keeping, and the development of sophisticated laboratory apparatus and techniques. Consider the practical contributions. Alchemists perfected processes like distillation, sublimation, calcination, and amalgamation. They developed new acids, alkalis, and salts, and discovered new elements and compounds. The very glassware, furnaces, and heating methods used in early modern chemistry laboratories were direct descendants of alchemical workshops. These practical skills and tools were fundamental to the empirical investigations that defined the scientific revolution. Without the alchemists' hands-on engagement with matter, the nascent fields of chemistry and even physics would have lacked essential methodological foundations. Perhaps the most compelling evidence of alchemy's significance lies in the figures who straddled both worlds. Isaac Newton, often hailed as the epitome of the scientific revolution and the father of classical physics, dedicated a vast amount of his intellectual energy to alchemical pursuits. His alchemical writings, far more extensive than his published scientific works, reveal a deep engagement with the transformation of matter, the nature of active principles, and the hidden forces of nature. While his alchemical theories might seem distant from his Principia Mathematica, historians like Betty Jo Teeter-Dobbs and Richard Westphal have argued that Newton's alchemical investigations influenced his understanding of attraction, repulsion, and the fundamental particles of matter, concepts central to his physics. His search for a vegetable mercury, or a philosophical mercury, was not entirely separate from his inquiries into gravity or light. Both were attempts to uncover the underlying operational principles of the universe. Similarly, Robert Boyle, often credited as the father of modern chemistry and a key proponent of the experimental method, was deeply immersed in alchemical traditions. His seminal work, The Skeptical Chymist, 1661, while criticizing certain alchemical theories, was nevertheless a product of an alchemical milieu. Boyle's emphasis on empirical observation, controlled experiments, and the rejection of Aristotelian elements in favor of a corpuscular theory of matter, directly built upon and refined the experimental legacy of alchemy. He sought to purify and rationalize chemical practice, moving it away from its more mystical interpretations, but his methods and many of his questions originated in alchemical inquiry. Even figures like Paracelsus, Philippus Aurelius Theophrastus Bombastus von Hohenheim, a controversial alchemist and physician of the 16th century, profoundly influenced the development of medicine and pharmacology. His emphasis on direct observation, the use of specific chemical remedies for specific diseases, and his rejection of traditional Galenic medicine paved the way for a more chemically oriented approach to healing, laying groundwork for modern pharmacology. His concept of the tria prima, salt, sulfur, and mercury, as fundamental principles of matter, while not entirely accurate, was an early attempt at a chemical theory of composition. Beyond practical and personal connections, alchemy also contributed to the philosophical underpinnings of the scientific revolution. Alchemists, in their quest for the philosopher's stone, or the universal solvent, were driven by a profound belief in the possibility of transforming nature and uncovering its deepest secrets. This belief in the manipulability of nature, the idea that hidden truths could be revealed through active intervention and experimentation, resonated strongly with the emerging mechanical philosophy and the new scientific method. The alchemical emphasis on active principles, spirits, and the dynamic interplay of forces provided an alternative to purely mechanistic explanations, influencing figures like Newton in their search for non-mechanical causes in nature. The transition from alchemy to chemistry was not a sudden rupture but a gradual evolution. As the mystical and esoteric aspects of alchemy receded, its empirical methods, laboratory techniques, and accumulated knowledge of chemical substances were absorbed into the emerging discipline of chemistry. The scientific revolution did not abolish alchemy. It refined it, rationalized it, and ultimately transformed it into a more systematic and publicly verifiable science. In conclusion, to overlook alchemy's role is to present an incomplete and misleading picture of the scientific revolution. Far from being an antithesis, alchemy provided the practical infrastructure, experimental methodologies, conceptual frameworks, and even the intellectual motivation for many of the period's greatest scientific minds. It was the crucible in which many of the foundational elements of modern chemistry and experimental science were forged, demonstrating that the path to scientific modernity was often winding, complex, and deeply rooted in traditions that we now too readily dismiss. Key historical figures and concepts for further study. Isaac Newton, 1642 to 1727. His extensive alchemical manuscripts reveal a deep engagement with transmutation, the nature of matter, and universal forces, often seen as complementary to his work in physics and mathematics. Robert Boyle, 1627 to 1691, a pioneer of modern chemistry and the experimental method. His work The Skeptical Chemist, 1661, laid groundwork for chemistry, while still operating within an alchemical context. Paracelsus, 1493 to 1541, a revolutionary physician and alchemist who advocated for chemical remedies and direct observation in medicine, challenging traditional medical practices. Andreas Libavius, circa 1555 to 1616, author of Alchemia, 1597, one of the first chemistry textbooks, which systematized alchemical knowledge. The Royal Society. Many early members of this pioneering scientific institution, including Boyle and Newton, had strong interests in alchemical research. Empiricism and experimentation. Alchemical practices, with their emphasis on hands-on laboratory work and observation, contributed significantly to the development of empirical methodologies central to the scientific revolution. Corpuscular theory. The idea that matter is composed of tiny, discrete particles, explored by alchemists and later refined by figures like Boyle, was a crucial step towards modern atomic theory. Copyright 2025. References. Dobbs, B. J. T. 1975. The Foundations of Newton's Alchemy, or The Hunting of the Green Lion. Cambridge University Press. This work is fundamental for understanding Newton's alchemical pursuits and their connection to his scientific thought. Newman, W. R. 2004. Promethean Ambitions, Alchemy and the Quest to Perfect Nature. University of Chicago Press. A comprehensive overview of alchemy's history and its intellectual ambitions, including its relationship with early modern science. Principi, L. M. 1998. The Aspiring Adept, Robert Boyle and His Alchemical Quest. Princeton University Press. Explores Robert Boyle's deep involvement in alchemy and how it shaped his chemical investigations. Principi, L. M. 2013. The Secrets of Alchemy. University of Chicago Press. A concise and authoritative introduction to alchemy, dispelling myths and highlighting its scientific dimensions. Westphal, R. S. 1980. Never at Rest, a biography of Isaac Newton. Cambridge University Press. A classic biography of Newton that discusses his alchemical interests in detail within the broader context of his life and work.